Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of HFS Unfiltered. Uh, in today's edition, we are going to talk all about global capability centers or GCCs, a topic that's dominating our world of IT services, especially in India. And I'm delighted to have a super special guest today with us, Sandeep Kulkarni, Senior VP and Head of Worley Enterprise Services. Welcome to the show, Sandeep.
Thanks, Saurabh, and very happy to be here. Uh, Global capability centers, shared services, it's my passion. So anything related to that, I never miss a chance.
Fantastic. So, Sandeep, tell me, let's maybe start with a bit of background on Worley itself, and how does the Global Capability Center, your organization, sort of support its mission to drive a more sustainable planet?
No, thanks for asking, Saurabh. And Worley is a company. It's basically a company which has now pivoted mainly into sustainability related projects. Our mission is to make world a more sustainable to make a more sustainable world. It's as traditionally was mainly in the oil and gas segment, pivoted into new energy transition as well as new energy resources. Uh, we just published the results today for last year, and we have it's a phenomenal growth. The growth is great, and the plans that we had to have more than 50% of our revenues through sustainability related work, we are already surpassing that. So I think we are doing good. Now, coming to the WES, as we call it, which is Worley Enterprise Services, which is the GBS organization for Worley. This was conceptualized about 3 years back, post COVID. I think what as the company was pivoting into new areas, what we realized is that for the company of this size, spread across 45 odd countries, spread across more than 50,000 employees globally, and as we were transforming, we need to make sure that we are able to build an organization that is agile and that is adaptable to the changes that are happening outside in the industry, as well as which will help uh, Wordly pivot into the new journey of transformation projects that we were undertaking. So this was identified as one of the key strategic levers for Wordly as a part of its entire enterprise-wide transformation. It is reported to the investors, it is reported to the board, to the audit risk committee. So that's how we conceptualized. We looked at uh, the first part of the journey has been more about lift and shift. So we had uh, multiple processes. So right now, as a part of WES, as we call it, we have six functions. So we have finance, we have HR, we have IT, we have assurance, we have inside sales, and legal. So these are the six functions which come under WES. Where we started this journey, we looked at multiple models, and the first phase of that was lift and shift. So basically, operations spread across globally, centralize, but then move them as is. We adopted a hybrid model for some of the uh, core processes or functions which are integral from a company point of view. We looked at leveraging an in-house or a captive model, as we call it. And for the larger functions like finance, HR, and IT, we leveraged a model which is an outsourced model. The idea being uh, to have partners who bring in the best of breed processes, best practices from outside, and our ability to scale. So over the last year and a half, it was more about lift, shift, and then stabilization of these processes. Uh, we completed one full year of BAU in July, which is our start of the new financial year. So it's a fairly new organization, fairly nascent organization. And now we are starting the journey, as we call it, fix and improve, where we look at how do we fix the problems, how do we have a continuous improvement mindset culture and improve the processes, and how do we undertake transformation of projects. And through transformation, how do we help the enterprise to be more agile, to be more lean, and adaptable to the changes that are happening. So that's in a nutshell what we're trying to do here.
No, that's fantastic. So, so you know, while your while West is relatively new, you've been a veteran in this industry, Sandeep, and you've seen, the concept of GCC is not new. It's been there for several decades now. Remember we used to call them captives earlier, then we call them GICs, now we call them GCCs. How how do you think the model has evolved for this? Especially from the context of India, and where do you think this is going?
Absolutely great question, Saurabh. And uh, I have been in some shape or form part of this industry, be it outsourcing. First, it was outsourcing, then we used to call it offshoring. Then it was setting up India Center captive, then other locations. And so it has evolved over a period of time. I remember I set up my first so-called captive in '99 for a startup when I was in the Bay Area, and set up here in India. Then did outsource center setup and captives. So this happens to be my eighth such initiative. So maybe have set up between outsourced and in-house. I don't like the term captive, but outsource and in-house centers. This would be around 16th or 17th center to be set up. So yeah, a lot of learning, a lot of scars. But as we started early, right, this was more about currency arbitrage. It was about, okay, you have resources working in the high cost locations. If we move the work to a low cost location, you save money. Through centralization, you have some benefits. But it was more about a currency arbitrage or a cost arbitrage. That was the sole driver. The reason for us, we set up multiple centers with multiple companies. So I was with a startup, then was with VeriSign, Symantec, Yahoo, and a number of others, where it was more about saving money. Uh, Over a period of time, and I think this was, we started from a GCC point of view, it started serving multiple objectives. It was not just about savings, because your savings are for year one. How do you justify year on year savings, or even how do you justify the value creation? I think that started sometime. I remember when I was doing the blueprint for Yahoo to set up a network of global capability centers globally. So where we had again adopted a strategy where we said whatever is core and strategic, and wherever we have compliance and data related regulations to follow, we leveraged centers, in-house centers in specific geographies. So we set up something in US, in Nebraska, for the US and North America region. We set up something in Cairo to support Europe, and then set up in Bangalore. And these were the in-house centers. And then we did outsource the non-strategic, non-core work. And that time it was looking at not only just the price point or what is the location where there is talent availability, where do you place this center, but it was also to leverage the technology capabilities in India. So I'm talking about, this was around 2007, 2008, when we started setting up these centers. And then the next one I set up was a domestic in-house center for Tata Motors, which was 100% in-house. And here it was nothing about currency arbitrage or cost arbitrage. In fact, it was the other way, because this was a domestic India operation. So it was, we were moving processes from locations which were cheaper to Pune, which was relatively high cost compared to Dharwad or compared to any other remote location in India where we had the plants. So it was, then we started looking into the value creation part. And since we didn't have the luxury of a currency arbitrage in case of this domestic operation, it was all about streamlining, centralizing processes, creation of value, and that is the next phase. When I did a similar setup for Jaguar Land Rover, that time this was around 2018, 17, 18. We had the green shoots of automation coming in. So the strategy more shifted into automation first. So when I set up the GBS for Jaguar Land Rover, we looked at a number of processes, we looked at sub processes, and based on the SIPOC, we said, okay, let's have a strategy of automation first. Let's try to automate that we can. Whatever we cannot is where we leverage a lower cost location. So that's how it shifted. In case of Worley, it's the company has grown through acquisitions. It has been the processes are fragmented, so it's all about basically fixing some of the processes, streamlining, standardizing, automating, and that creation of value through that. So there are multiple levers where most of the companies are doing, but it's now it is no longer just cost arbitrage. Yes, it is. It's an outcome, but the real benefit of leveraging India is that ability to have the top class talent on the technology front and the scale at which you could hire this talent and grow it. I'll give an example. I won't name the company that I was working, but we this was sometime, I think mid to between 2010, 2000 to 2010, where Estonia was growing significantly, where the government of Estonia was maybe giving red carpet to all the companies to establish their centers there because it had a significant technology perception that Estonia has very good technologies. So we did a study, we did a pilot there for this company that I was working for. And quickly we realized, yes, it has capabilities from a technology perspective, but Estonia doesn't have the scale. So we realized that it only produces something like 600 computer engineering graduates in Estonia. And there were three centers who were hiring about 80% of that. So we didn't have that play to scale. So to look at not only availability of the technology talent or skill set, but also the ability to scale. And I think that's where India is in that sweet spot where you not only have the technology talent available, but also the ability to scale.
No, that's fantastic. I think your life journey is 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 sort of a fantastic view into how the value proposition has evolved from, as you mentioned, cost arbitrage to more cost-effective innovation at scale, right? And I think that's great. But well, let's talk about AI a little bit and generative AI right now. Are you excited about it? Are you nervous about it? Are you a bit of both? How do you think it's going to impact this model as that thing scales up?
Absolutely, it's a mix of both. So I attend I attend a number of events, conferences, and AI and Gen AI has been the buzzword for the last perhaps 12 months or so. But at the same time, so it has immense potential. So I think last week itself I was attending an event and we had a roundtable and we were talking about it. And it doesn't seem to be the same kind, meeting the same kind of fate that a blockchain met, or where you had that buzz but not many of use cases. Gen AI is mainstream. It is something which is very exciting. And as we look at multiple use cases, and even in Worley, we have set up advanced AI labs. We are in the process of ramping them up, where we are going to leverage, and it's going to be a number of labs where we're going to leverage talent from multiple locations. But overall, it's very mainstream to what we are doing in Worley. It's very, it's not only just about leveraging Gen AI for functions or the back office functions, but it is absolutely leveraging Gen AI of to change the working model of how we do business and how do we leverage that. And we have doing there are quite a few use cases we have. The flip side, and then I think the side where we often look at, okay, how do we make it better, is where we are setting up a Gen AI ethical kind of thought process, where it's going to be a common way of looking at Gen AI across the enterprise, be it shared services, be it uh, our digital team, be it any other operations, but having a common framework both from uh, developing Gen AI based solutions to what are those ethical practices that we need to follow, to what are those pitfalls that we need to make sure that we are able to follow. So it's a very exciting and evolving field. I firmly believe it's here to stay. It's not a fad. It's not a buzzword. We are looking at benefits that we have started getting, and the applicability is significant. So it's a game changer.
Yeah, no, I agree. If you look at our research also, Sandeep, I think the idea maturity of Gen AI is very, very strong. You know, practically everybody that we've either surveyed or talked to, irrespective of the industry, has a huge number of use cases and potential impact on whether it's productivity, whether it's personalization, whether it's sort of predictive capabilities. I think where what we need to show is the journey maturity, you know, because we are still in the early stages of journey maturity. You know, we're I was joking with somebody, you know, it's death by 1,000 POCs right now. But I agree, it's not a flavor of the season. It is here to stay and has immense potential. Hey, I wanted to touch. I was intrigued by one of the comments that you made in your opening remarks, Sandeep, that you have a hybrid model at West. And you know, if you look at what's happening if, with IT services right now, you know, all these large service providers, and you look at their growth rate, etc., they're sort of flat to declining. So that sort of trend is going like this. But if you look at all the GCC setups and expansions, that's seeing an explosive growth, right? That's so it's tale of two cities almost. Um, why do you think that's happening?
So it's a very interesting phenomena, sort of, that is happening. Earlier, when the outsourcing waves started, we saw that things moving to the outsourcing side. Uh, then it was in-house centers, and now you're absolutely right. I think the growth of the GCCs, especially in India, it's exploding, right? It's growing. I think we have what 2,000 plus GCCs, and based on where the indicators show, we should be maybe, if not doubling, but growing by at least 50% in the next 3 or 4 years. So it is an exploding market, uh, and it's also a part of in some cases it's the maturity of the organization. So if somebody is in this journey of outsourcing and shared services over the last 10 odd years, have been through a couple of renewals of the contract, and having that knowledge, I think that's a part. In some cases it's a part of journey where companies are saying, okay, we have been working in this model, we could do better if we have the control of our own resources. We could motivate them better. We could give them that growth path. The second is about very thoughtfully thinking of what is strategic and what is core to an organization. As you see, if there are new business models emerging, if there are new companies coming in, and I was a part of a PE forum about startups trying to leverage the whole GCC ecosystem, and how do we do that. There, it's all about IP. It's all about the strategic core kind of a work, which ideally should be done in house. Now, earlier, uh, there was lesser awareness for these companies. So you had a consulting company, or you had a service provider pitching in. But now I think there is a significant knowledge maturity, where companies know that, okay, this is core strategic to me, and we should retain it in house. The third thing, which is also a result of the maturity being coming in, and uh, we would be definitely doing more research, and we had done it in the past, is it's a two-tier model, which could be called as a hybrid, where even if we have the functions which are highly outsourceable, a mature industry is there, but in order to retain that knowledge in house, the necessity of a knowledge layer to be retained internally. And I think that is a realization that a number of enterprises are getting now, that the ability to retain the knowledge in house, whereas leveraging the service providers for scale, for rule based transactional aspects. There were a number of companies who undertook the outsourcing journey, who went to the extreme spectrum of all things outsourced. In that quest, they lost all the internal knowledge, because companies leverage outsourcing service providers. They let go their people who had that tribal knowledge as well as knowledge, and there is a significant dependency on the service providers. It's difficult to switch. It's also a risk. Uh, so from a risk mitigation strategy point of view, that's the third model, which is having that two-tier model, where you retain something in house and then you leverage the service provider. It's also emerging. So all these put together, I think, is adding to the growth of new GCCs being set up, the existing GCCs being ramped up, and I think that's how we see the growth.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating how these how these trends evolve, and I think you're absolutely right. It's a function of maturity of both enterprises and service providers, to be honest. But I think in the long run, at least our prediction here at HFS is that the hybrid model, what you are doing at West, is going to be the. It's not a this versus that kind of a conversation. It is this and that. The construct is and, not or. And I think it's great to hear, organizations like yours are using that and model to get the best of both worlds.
Absolutely, and even the service providers are maturing on their service offerings. Uh, we are in discussions of with some of the service providers on doing certain innovation, co-create innovations. That's a completely different business model. How do we even go have a joint go-to-market strategy? How do we go? So service providers are also evolving. The business models are evolving, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see uh, how the ecosystem works.
Yeah. Look, Sandeep, this is a fascinating conversation and we could go on for hours, but I don't, and I want to respect your time, but I don't want to let you go without uh, asking this final question, which is, if let's say you had a magic wand and there was one wish that could come true, uh, and let's talk about GCCs and the field that we are talking about, what would that be?
I think that's the toughest question, Saurabh, so far, because the rest of them were more experience related, where you could look back and then you could look at, okay, what worked, what did not work, what's happening. This is something which is forward looking, and I think I don't have a globe, magic globe to see into what is the future. But if you look at where we want the GCCs to play a role, right? It's and that is happening to a certain extent. But I would love to see this evolved. Is it's not just about leveraging the talent. It's not about leveraging doing work rapidly at a good cost price point, or doing more for less, and in a faster way with the skill sets that we have in India. It's about the ability to leverage the Indian ecosystem to come up with breakthrough innovations. And it is something which is absolutely possible. India is pretty diverse. The market is growing. So even if you want to look at innovations coming from these GCCs, and innovations are not just about automating something, or doing something. It's the innovations which will have an impact on the business model of an enterprise, is something which I would wish more companies do it. There are some examples where the GCC started. This is about Sears. I think they started a center where they started doing consumer behavior analytics from the GCC, and they spun it off, and the business of this particular unit was much more than the Sears retail part. So I think that's the innovation, is absolutely possible, and I think that's where the entire ecosystem of the technology mindset, uh, the market that India has, the diversity that India has, and the startup ecosystem which is being built. I think it's prime. I would love to see breakthrough innovations coming in uh, through the GCCs.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I think we can summarize this whole conversation about it started with cost arbitrage. Today we are in sort of a skills arbitrage, and then tomorrow, this was fascinating. I think your life journey is a living, breathing example of how GCCs and this whole space has evolved. So thanks a lot for taking us through that.
No, absolutely. I think thanks for having me. It's lovely to talk to you, Saurabh, as always. And thanks for having me on this platform. It's HFS and us. I think we go long back. I know for a very long time, since the initial part of automation. It's a fascinating journey that you are going through, and uh, very happy to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Sandeep.
Thank you.